Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Hello, you're welcome to today's edition of Money Radio on Leadership Podcast. Money Radio brings you the latest developments in Nigeria's business and economy cycles and issues of businesses around the world. My name is Innocent Bodo, and today we are going to look at a very important development in the digital economy sector. On Monday, the federal government issued a directive to telecom companies to commence the process of barring mobile lines that have not linked their national identity number with the SIM card, or what they call a subscriber identification model, what they call SIM. So the defaulters of this very government policy will have their lines barred from Monday, and then it has already started making impact on the people who have already started complaining about their lines being barred. The federal government, it should be recalled, had graciously given several deadlines from 2020 up to this last deadline, which expired on the 31st of March 2022. And so about 73 million lines are said to have been barred from receiving, from making calls. They might be able to, receive calls, but making calls and some other services will be restricted for those lines. And so we are in the studio today trying to find a way out of this quagmire for people who have actually defaulted, and what we can also do to bring them into the mainstream as we all talk about the digital economy and how to improve it. So we need everybody on board. And so I have an ICT expert in the studio who will help me to dissect the issues in the proper perspective so that we'll know whether we have any other measure that we can take to be able to accommodate the 73 million lines that have already been barred from Monday. I have in the studio Jafar Hanil. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us once again. Now, when you heard the news that the federal government has directed the telecom companies to commence the process of barring or rather restricting the mobile lines of those who have not linked their NIN with their SIM, what actually came to your mind?
Well, I've always been an advocate of having a centralized database. So it was something that was necessary. This is just one of it. There are so many databases that we need to have, like the family database. Because having your SIM linked is just getting your SIM linked. That's a database on its own. But now, even most persons, we have NIN, but our NIN are just singular identity. It is not linked to, you don't know who's this person's sibling, who's this person's brother. Three siblings can go register their NIN, and they will all come out as different entities. But when we have a family database, now 3 of them will be categorized as under one family. So it's easier for you to track persons, knowing fully well that they belong to a certain family. So that's one area of database that we have not even we've not considered yet. So there are we're already doing the passports integration, driver's license integration, building integration. The building also needs a database.
Yes.
Every building, we don't have a centralized database for our building system that will capture the architectural designs that building is built with, the structures, all the necessary things that contain in the building is supposed to be in a database. So that in the case, let's say there is, for example, there is an attack or a robbery or a stage attack in a particular building, and law enforcement agencies find themselves in that particular environment, they can go to the database, get the blueprint, get the architectural design, get all the necessary things, analyze the blueprints well to know how best they can probably launch a rescue attack. So these are it's a good one, the NIN is just the SIM NIN linkage is just one of the databases. There are so many databases that we need to have. So I believe the government has been gracious. It has extended the
Deadlines for
deadline
several-
at several points and all that. So it's that it is taking effect now. It's for me. I think it's something that is good.
Yeah, a lot of people will say, why wouldn't the government also just give them just a little more time?
There will,
And we say, even if the government continues to do that, it will also it wouldn't have undermined their own authority and integrity for several of the
there definitely would be a time where the government would say, okay, I think it's time, and that it's now. You get they've had several at several points in time they had to. But there was a time that it went to National Assembly, that the National Assembly had to advise the government to postpone the deadline and all that. So they definitely would, even though we leave it till 10 years, there will still be persons who would not want to. There are people who have decided that they don't want to register. There are people who have decided that I can't go and disturb myself, even though the process is not as tedious. In fact, the process is not tedious at all. It's not a complex process.
Yes.
Registering, linking your NIN to your SIM to your NIN is all about you dialing the right code. Most telecom providers were advertising the code that you use in dialing. In fact, some had to send text messages to their subscribers telling them that this is the code you use to link. And one challenge that we are experiencing now is that most persons who thought that they had linked their line, they are coming out to complain that I linked my line, so why am I part of the 73 million people that have been banned? You get so I think the reason may be that they did not, the process was not completed. They didn't complete the process. Not, it may not be from their end, because they probably did their part, and their part is just to dial the code. But there is need for you to get a feedback after dialing the code. You will need to get a feedback that your line has been successfully linked. If you don't get the feedback, it means that there is a tendency that your line has not been linked. So you would still fall under than 73 million. So the question of why wasn't my line linked, even though I dialed the right code, is not a question that either NCC or the telecoms providers would have to respond to or give reasons why those that dialed the right code are unable to get. They didn't get a feedback telling them that their line has been successfully linked.
Okay. Yes, indeed. One of the many reasons the government gave for this linkage of the NIN with the SIM as the issue of security. And of course, we need to have, like you said, a proper national database for proper identification and all that. But in the case of security that you mentioned now we have about 303 million lines that are already been connected. Not they're not active though. But then we have about 98 million, nearly 200 million that are active lines. And out of these 198 million active lines, we have 125 million that have already been made available to be connected to the NIN. But then NIN, the NIM-SIM only connected 78 million from this 125 million. So you can see that there's still a long way to go from the NIM-SIM end to be able to connect more people who have actually made their own data available for them to be linked. So what is happening? I know well there are some issues they had in the past, and there might be some improvements they have made because in the past they were not even able to reach up to 50 million, but now they are 78 million and still counting. So, but the process now, it requires them to be able to expedite action on this so that more lines can be linked to the NIN. What do you think?
Sadly, NIM-SIM, there's a whole lot of you can't link your NIN. You can't link your SIM to an NIN if you truly don't have an NIN, which is a challenge, you guys. So if we have 73 million, 70 something thereabout, 78 million
yes.
NIN number, it means that definitely there are so many. So there are Nigerians that have more than one SIM, and they may have linked two of their SIMs to one NIN. That's not the challenge. The challenge now is you that don't have. There is no way you can link your SIM. So it means that you have to get the NIN.
Yes.
Now, getting the NIN is sadly a tedious process. It is not linking the SIM that is a problem, or getting the NIN. Because if we have over 200 million Nigerians, and we have only 78 million NIN numbers, it means that over 50% have not registered. Does that include children? So what's the strategy for children? For the strategy, because uh, 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 before now, children usually don't have SIM. Children usually don't have phones. You get, but we are in a dispensation where most parents prefer to, okay, even though restricted in a way, still have a means of me communicating with you, no matter how small you are. You get, there are parents who are, so those children tend to have their lines. So they have their lines. So those lines be linked to the parents' NIN, or would those lines be linked to the child's NIN? Does the child need an NIN? Yes, the child needs an NIN. So what then happens if the child does not have an NIN? Yet, so it's not just, we should not look at the working class. We should go down to the villages. How many Nigerian, how many NIN center, registration center do we have in our villages? Rural environments. What's the strategy in place to ensure that this NI center gets there? What's the strategy in place to ensure that somebody is there to translate for our old mummies and old daddies that are in the village and cannot speak English or would not understand what the NI agent is talking about. So generally, there are a whole lot of things that needs to be done. Improvement in the area of NIM-SIM. What happened in the past with NIM-SIM, where the server went down, that one, it has nothing to even do with. That is infrastructural based. We're not even talking about infrastructural based now. We're talking about the process and strategic way of ensuring that you get more persons to register. Implementing a ban will definitely get more persons to go to NIM-SIM to get their NIN. But
Yes.
is the environment
How fast
enabling?
can they
Because
process that?
I've shared my story sometime here where I told us that where I went to do a print out of my NIN, my slip. Now I got there as early as 7, and the staffs came on time, but they were just, everybody was just looking at each other.
Yes.
The staffs were looking at us that came to do our NIN processes. We, the citizens, were looking at the staffs. Nobody was able to say what exactly is the content. And I had to summon Corey to ask what exactly is the challenge. And they said that there's no phone in the chain. So that means what we eventually did was to contribute money. And we sent somebody to go to the filling session, get a fuel, and we turn the fuel and start the gen before they could attend to us. So that's the kind of process. Now, it's not everybody within that place that wanted that slip or NIN registration that will have the fund to support. What if you go to a place? What if you go to the village now where you know that 10 naira, 100 naira, 1,000 naira is huge money for them, and they would not be willing to let go of that kind of amount. So what would you do? So there's a huge improvement that needs to come from the area of NIM-SIM.
Okay, there's a huge improvement that needs to come from the part of National Identity Management Commission, NIN-SIM, so that more Nigerians can be integrated into the NIN process. This is where we'll draw the curtains on today's edition of Burning Radio. We'll be talking about the NIN-SIM linkage and how 73 million lines have been barred from outgoing calls. And so this is as a result of a decision by the federal government to the telecom companies to begin the process of inflicting this sanction on defaulters. Yeah, recall that the federal government has actually been gracious enough to give Nigerians and legal residents several deadlines to be able to meet this process. And so, I've been in the studio with Hanel Jafaru. Hanel, thank you so much for joining us. And it's on this note that we say, uh, Thank you so much for joining us on this program. We promise to bring you a bumper edition of Funny Radio when next we come. Take care and goodbye.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.